Welcome to the Story Fulfilled podcast, where we deep dive into how each character and story in the Bible comes together to fulfill the story of God. I'm Fletcher.
I'm Abby.
And I'm Jay.
And today's story is about Paul and the Athenians who worshipped the unknown god statue.
Yeah.
We need like scary music there.
Bum, bum, bum.
That scared me.
It's going to scare everybody in their cars, too. They're
That's
listening
right.
on the radio, pops their eardrum
There
or
you
something.
go.
There we go.
Yeah.
We have a question. And because Abby asking a question led to shenanigans last week, we're back to me asking the questions. So what is a mystery you wish you knew the answer to?
I think I see where you got the question. Unknown God, you're
Unknown
not
God,
sure.
yeah.
Mystery.
Mystery. Yeah.
Mystery machine.
Pretty straightforward there.
Mystery.
What's your answer?
Why do I have to go first?
Oh, okay. I was just going to
Do
say,
you-
the mystery machine, Scooby-Doo solving mysteries.
Okay.
Which one?
Oui.
It was Mr. Jenkins. I didn't know it was you in that mask.
Always, yeah.
And I would have got away with it if it wasn't for
For
you.
you
Meddling kids. Yeah.
Oh, it's always
Great.
the meddling kids.
I'm
Great.
distracting myself because I don't
Yes.
have an answer yet. What do you think, Abby?
Okay. I thought you said you had one. Jay, do you have one?
Well, I mean, the caramel bar comes to mind. Like, how do they get the caramel in
Fair
there?
enough.
Or the
Okay.
caramel
Speaking of
into-
candy bars, are you a left Twix or a right Twix person?
What does
I
that
don't
even
think
mean?
I've given it much thought.
Oh.
I deconstruct the Twix by, like, I like a Twix to have spent a bit of time in the fridge and, like, deconstruct, pull
Mars
the caramel
bars.
off, and then eat the cookie.
That's good.
I'm one of those.
Yeah.
But I think a real mystery that I would like, I'm thinking Stonehenge. Like,
Stone.
Cool.
Okay.
Those
Why?
cool.
Yeah.
yeah.
That kind
That's-
of goes up there with like Easter Island. Yeah. Those ones are just like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
How?
that's good. I think I want to know. This isn't like one mystery though. I kind of want to just know like all the random places in the Bible, like where was the Garden of Eden and like that kind of thing,
Right.
where no one really can point to the exact archaeological.
I thought you were going to go in the same vein as Jay's with the aliens thing, because
No.
Stonehenge, maybe it was aliens.
Well, that's a
and
theory,
Abby,
but-
Abby's
we all
a big,
know aliens are real. Anyways,
Abby's a big
Fletcher,
alien
you-
supporter.
that they're real.
Yeah. I'm going to go. I think we've talked about this on the show with Atlantis.
Yeah.
Where was it? Was it real? What the heck's going
Was
on
it
there?
a city of gold?
Yeah, there's some crazy
Underwater.
stuff.
Was it
underwater?
underwater,
Yeah.
too?
Was it built by aliens like Stonehenge was?
Yeah,
I mean,
mermaids.
it would require physical abilities that we as humans don't.
Also, the
Mermaids,
pyramids
people.
are pretty cool because they're
Yeah.
they're
That's not
crazy.
really a mystery.
It is a
Yeah.
mystery. We have no idea how complicated the technology was to build them.
Yeah.
All these ancient
pulleys and wheels, they got it. No problem.
pulleys and wheels.
Yeah.
You know how big they are? Have you seen them? I haven't seen them. I want to see them, but they're huge.
I've visited Chichen Itza, and so the pyramids
Okay.
yes.
in Mexico.
Me
Oh
so,
yeah, I think I have too. They're very cool.
yeah.
Yeah, those actually I've climbed a couple, and they are tall. I
Yeah.
visited like
And they're
Tikal
steep.
in Guatemala, which is where they filmed one of the Star Wars episodes. Why am I keeping
wow.
with
Abby, Star Wars. Wow, Josh would be impressed.
You're a closeted sci-fi geek.
I'm
Talk
really
about
not.
aliens, talk about
No,
Star Wars.
man. Okay.
Very funny.
So as always, we encourage you to read the stories for yourselves to get the whole picture of what's going on. Today's story takes place in Acts
She really shut us
17.
down there.
Yeah,
She wasn't
yeah.
having any of the
She's
sci-fi stuff.
They figured me out. I gotta
Or, of
get
course, if
back
you have an
to-
answer to what mystery you'd like to be solved,
Yes.
email us at story@bfmc.org or visit our Instagram, DM us.
Yeah.
I don't know. Answer. Sometimes there's a story that you can respond to.
Yeah.
Whatever's up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're back in the book of Acts today, and also today, last episode of the season.
Oh
Look at
no,
that.
so
Crazy.
sad.
So
Oh.
sad. Yet so enjoyable and
Yeah.
so
I've enjoyed this
yeah.
season. It's been
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
So today we're going to Acts chapter 17, and we're following Paul on his second missionary journey. And so Paul, who was known as Saul, was a major persecutor of Christianity in Jerusalem, and he was actually present during the stoning of Stephen. it says that he looked on with approval. He approved as it was happening.
Did they give him his clothes afterward, I think, or something like that happened? They were like handing him stuff afterward.
Yeah. I remember is that it says he looked on with approval, right?
Yeah.
And so he was actually one of the reasons why the church had to disperse and leave Jerusalem. But then he met Jesus on the road to Damascus, and that changed his life, which, just so you know, when you have a personal encounter with Jesus, your life is changed. So that's a good thing. Seek that personal encounter. And so Paul was then called by Jesus to be his messenger to the Gentiles and to kings, as we see in Acts chapter 9. And so we've talked about Paul with Barnabas last season and their first missionary journey. And so this is during his second missionary journey.
How many did he do in total? 3?
We have three that
like,
are...
3 are in there.
Yeah.
And then something afterward, probably. I'm assuming he just went until he died. He just kept preaching.
The third missionary journey ended in imprisonment.
There we go. Okay, in Rome, right? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So talking about Paul was born in Tarsus, in a city. Cities in Turkey, actually, in modern-day Turkey. I think it's on the eastern side of Turkey, to a Jewish family with Roman citizenship, which is actually pretty special. So that means he gets all these rights that Romans get that normal Jewish people do not get. Anyway, He was probably born around 4 to 6 A.D. He grew up in Jerusalem to become a rabbi, so they moved to Jerusalem when he's young, and he studied the scriptures. His conversion happened in about 32 AD, again on the road to Damascus, and his first missionary journey takes place 47, 48 AD, second missionary journey 49, 52-ish AD, and then around the same time he probably wrote the letters to the city of Thessalonica, which is of course the books of 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. Yeah. So Paul is who we're talking about, and you're probably thinking, he's not an outsider. Right. Well, little surprise here, Paul isn't really the subject of today's. We're talking about the Athenians. Yeah.
Who are outsiders.
Who are outsiders. They're not Jewish.
And they're, at the time. Yeah.
Yes, they're Greeks, not Jewish.
So Fletcher kind of stole my thunder there.
Sorry.
And this story takes place in Athens, Greece.
Hey. Woo, where's that?
It is in Greece.
Oh.
Is it the capital?
Yes. No. Yes. Yes. It's the capital. My brain is going nuts.
Let's check.
No, it is.
Abby, keep talking
Athens is the capital.
I couldn't.
I'm 100% sure on this. I was getting confused with Rome in my head, but no, Rome's Italy. I always get those two confused.
You're off the hook, Abby. It's Athens is the capital.
I know. I was 100% sure. Okay. Well, anyways, because we know this is in Athens, Greece.
Just like the aliens.
So this story is in Athens, Greece, and it takes place in the Areopagus, which is right beside the Acropolis, which is in the center of Athens. Right,
which is also referred to in some versions of the Bible as Mars Hill.
There we go.
Yeah, so. Areopagus, I don't know how Abby said it. I don't know if mine's right, of course. Our pronunciation business on this podcast. Areopagus, it's Ares Hill, or Mars is just the Roman version of Ares. So Ares,
Who
Mars
is the
Hill.
God of war.
God of war. Yeah. War Hill. Even though they weren't war, it was mostly a discussion forum. Yeah. And it was very peaceful, I guess. It was mostly for discussion, philosophical debate.
It was still a Greek god, right? So they probably wanted to honor it in some way. I don't know.
Sure. So let's get into the story of Paul and the Athenians and the unknown God. So Paul is in the middle of his second missionary journey. He goes from Antioch, Sicilia, Lycaonia, Galatia, Troas, Philippi, Thessalonica, Berea, Athens, and Corinth. And today's, of course, takes place in Athens. So he's going around the city and he notices all these idols. And this actually troubles Paul. And he goes and starts talking to the people in the synagogue, the Jewish people, and to the God-fearing Gentiles that are in Athens. And he's just talking to them and preaching the gospel there. And then he also has this debate with these Epicurean and Stoic philosophers. Right. And I'm reading that, I'm like, what the heck does that mean? So I looked it up. Stoicism was a form of kind of virtue ethics, and it was founded by a guy named Zeno of Citium, and I think Marcus Aurelius was a famous Stoic. And then the Epicureans believed in this philosophy that pleasure is the ultimate good, and it's the ultimate ethic. And that was founded by, of course, Epicurus.
Right.
So
they must have been Enneagram 7s.
Why is that? Tell me why.
Because their big thing is pleasure.
Oh, fair enough. Yes, you got him there. And Enneagram, go check it out. Abby likes it. I actually like it too. Anyway, so Paul ends up talking to these guys, and they end up taking him to the Areopagus or Mars Hill to discuss his ideas, because they hear this guy. What's this guy babbling about? He seems to have new ideas. Let's go discuss it in the public forum where ideas were discussed. So he then gives a speech to the council there, and it's actually the most reported and fully written out speech that we hear from Paul. So that's a pretty cool thing. We don't really hear Paul's preaching or Paul's let's say sermons very often, but this is the only actual case of hearing Paul's full words. So we're going to actually read it out today.
And fortunately for us, this is a short one, because the one account that we do have of Paul preaching is that he preached for so long that the boy fell asleep and fell out of the window. So
we wouldn't be reading that one.
We would not be reading that one.
I might fall asleep and fall out of a window.
Good thing there's no windows.
So it's Acts chapter 17, and it starts in verse 22 and goes to verse 31. And we're going to read today from the NIV. So it says, Paul then stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus and said,
People of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious, for as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. So you are ignorant of the very thing that you worship, and this is what I am going to proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by human hands, and he is not served by human hands as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breathes everything else. From one man he made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from any one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. Therefore, since we are God's offspring, we should not think that the divine being is like our gold or silver or stones, an image made by human design and skill. In the past, God overlooked such ignorance, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent. For he has set a day when he will judge the world with justice by the man he has appointed. He has given proof of this to everyone by raising him from the dead.
Thank you, Paul.
Maybe that's why this was the only message that was recorded by Paul, because it was so short. Right?
Yeah, they couldn't write down. It's like the verse about Jesus. If we recorded everything that Jesus said and did, there'd be no book that can contain it.
Yeah.
It's
Mind
like
you,
Paul's
we
sermon.
do have what seems to be a 2-chapter sermon from Jesus. That's a
but
pretty
Jesus
long...
is more important than Paul.
Yeah,
So.
he's a little bit...
Sorry,
I guess
Paul.
you're right. Okay, I got you.
Fair enough.
I got you.
So yeah, that's his speech that he gives in Acts chapter 17 once again. And after the speech, some people are like, raised from the dead. Yeah, right. They mocked him and they left. Other people, asked to hear more later. They said, okay, Paul, we want to hear some more. And then, but then some people, actually, including a guy named Dionysius and Damaris, who's a woman, and a couple other people, followed him out and actually learned more about Jesus and God that Paul served.
Yeah. It's kind of cool. And what I think is really neat about this story as well is that it starts out with Paul going ahead and he's actually waiting for Timothy and Silas to join him. And so this isn't even a part of the missionary journey. Like we're talking about this as being a part of his second missionary journey, but it's actually not an official part of the missionary journey. He's just waiting for the other guys to join him. And he is making observations. He's walking around, and he's like, "Oh, I see an opening for the gospel here." Mm-hmm. And then he has the conversations that he has with the Stoics and Epicureans, and then they bring him to say, "Okay, well, you're obviously very skilled in processing thought, so let's hear what you have to say." And he takes that open door and he absolutely runs with it, which I think is incredible. But the fact that this wasn't even a part of the official mission.
He saw an opening and he ran with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about what we read because it's not obviously the easiest thing to read and then just listen and understand it all. So basically what happened is Paul was walking through Athens and he saw this statue. And the Athenians, of course, the Greeks had this pantheon of gods, and they had dozens and dozens of other gods as well on top of that. and they had this statue that Paul finds, and it says, "To an unknown God." So basically what the Greeks were doing is covering their bases. They say, look, we know all these gods, but if there's one more, we're not going to forget about you. We're going to put that there.
Right.
And that's where Paul finds his opening. He's like, look, you worship all these other gods, and you're like, there's probably another one. And Paul's like, well, this is the God.
Right.
This is the one you're missing, and this is the true God that has the authority.
I actually wonder if to an unknown God is more specific than that, where they're saying like, there's a God who does things that we don't understand and can't explain, and this is our statue to worship that God. But either way, you're right, and what Paul does here, and I love this. I think that this is actually one of the keys to evangelism, because Paul is walking around, he's noticing the people, he's paying attention to what he sees, and he sees that they're asking a question. And I've probably said this on a Sunday morning before. I know I've said it a number of times when I was leading Bible school. The answer to everybody's question is Jesus. Right? The answer is Jesus. But the key and the difficulty sometimes, and the challenge for us, is to uncover what the question actually is. Because if we just go in guns a-blazing and say, okay, here's the 4 spiritual laws, or here's the Romans road, or whatever evangelistic technique we've been taught, we might actually be missing the point or addressing questions that aren't being asked necessarily. And so what Paul is doing here is he's actually uncovering the question that's being asked and pointing them to Jesus in that, because Jesus is always the answer. It doesn't matter. But our challenge is to uncover what is the question that they're asking.
What are they struggling with? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's almost like what key is going to fit in the door to open, and you can say, this is the way to Jesus.
Yeah.
What's the key? And I like also, you notice it says Paul quotes their poets and their philosophers. Yeah. Paul is taking them where they're at, what they understand, and he's showing, look, you've got it partially right, but here's the rest of the answer into the question that you've been asking. Yeah. So that's an aspect of the sermon that I really enjoy. Yeah.
And what you're searching for is Jesus. And that's a good, and so the outsiders in this are the Athenians. But for us, as just practical application, these are the people that we work with, that we go to school with, that we have family gatherings with, the people that we know in our lives who don't have a relationship with Jesus. They are asking the questions. They're asking for the answer, which is Jesus. And we need to be paying attention, just like Paul was, to uncover the questions that they're actually asking in order to, like you say, put the key in that door, the one that actually fits, and open the door, which is Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Well, good talk there. All right, so that leads to our final question for this season. Mm-hmm. How does this story lead to the fulfilling of the story of God throughout the rest of the Bible?
Mm-hmm. So we know, well, this is what I've been kind of thinking. We know that Jesus is the fulfillment of the entire Bible, and this is after Jesus. So you're like, okay, what else does it have to teach us? And it's basically what Paul is doing is what Jesus has told him to do, and it's to go out to make disciples, and he was specifically called to these Gentiles. Yeah. But he is preaching the gospel, and he's going through these journeys. And I've heard, like, if you hear people say, the whole question thing, what question are they asking? There must be something out there, and I believe in God, but maybe not, God in the sky. Yeah. You hear these questions, and you have to figure out what they're asking and how to meet them where they're at. Again, Paul with the Athenians, he was quoting their own philosophy back at them and explaining God through their eyes. So what I would encourage is meet people where they're at and what they understand and what is close to them, and use that to teach them about Jesus, because he's the ultimate, again, answer. Yeah. So I really like your metaphor about Jesus is the answer. We need to find the question. So, if you're looking for God in all these places, point them towards the right direction and the right answer. And
those openings, like you say, like sometimes people will say, like, oh, there's got to be something out there, or I believe in a higher power, or sometimes people will say, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Those are openings, and that
is almost the unknown God, right? Yeah. They're like, there's something out there. I don't know what he is. I'm going to, play all my cards just in case. Yeah. That is an opening to say, this is the God that you've been looking for.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, all right.
Point people to Jesus.
There you go. It's a great ending for this season.
Oh,
All right.
right. Thank
What a
you.
great season.
Season 3. It's all over for the summer.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. It's been a good one.
Yes, we do have one more thing coming up
Oh,
on
we do.
Wednesday,
What
though.
do we do?
We are doing our live Q&A
This
on,
Wednesday or next Wednesday?
on
What's the date?
August
the
31st
Okay.
at 5:30 p.m.
Awesome.
So join us on Instagram and Facebook or Facebook. Don't do both.
Not either or, people. Don't do
Yeah,
both.
yeah.
You're going to
Yeah.
kill our bandwidth or something.
I think that they'll just have loud noises.
Fair enough.
Yes.
If you have any
So-
questions that you want to ask us beforehand, email us, story@bfmc.org, post it on our Instagram. Questions about the topics, questions about us, about the podcast, about the Bible. We want to hear from you.
Yep.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing from you. So we'll see you on Wednesday.
Thanks for listening.
Bye for now.
See you later.